at their claws and paws. I will fight. I will be strong. I'll be one of them.
Timothy Grizzly Man Treadwell spent 13 summers camping among the bears at Alaska's Katmai National Park. He treated them more like friendly companions than wild animals, and he integrated himself into the bear population at Katmai using unorthodox and dangerous methods. Which raises the question, how did he end up in the stomach of a creature he considered to be his best friend?
I will be the master. Still a kind warrior.
Today, we're going to take a look at everything that had to go wrong for Grizzly Man Timothy Treadwell to meet his fate. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel and let us know in the comments below what other tragic stories you would like to hear about. Okay, let's tell the tale of a man who tried to befriend an apex predator. The brown bears of Alaska usually start prepping for winter in September. Knowing that's when the bears' appetites are on the rise, that's also when most of the bear watchers leave Katmai National Park. Indeed, on September 26th, Treadwell and his girlfriend, Amy Huguenard, packed up their camp in Kaflia Bay and headed to the airport. Once there, though, the couple had a change of heart. Treadwell was upset that he hadn't seen his favorite bear, a female he had named Downy. He also noted that the weather forecast was calling for rain. That meant more fish would be moving through the bay's waterways, attracting more bears. Treadwell was also put off by the cost of plane tickets back to his home state of California. After a verbal altercation with an airline employee, he decided to return to the park. The couple knew what they were up against. September was a dangerous month in the park due to all the hungry, feeding bears. In a letter dated September 2nd, Treadwell told friends, "I'm going to make it, unless one of the unfriendly bears gets me." Kaflia Bay along the Alaskan Gulf Coast was one of Treadwell's favorite spots for bear watching, and he spent time there every summer. In his 1997 book, Among Grizzlies, he labeled this part of Katmai National Park the Grizzly Maze, because in order to access it, campers had to navigate the web of intersecting grizzly trails in the thick brush surrounding the bay. Treadwell and Huguenard ventured back to the park on September 29th. In order to remain undetected by the Park Service, who'd recently imposed a new rule that primitive campsites had to be moved every 5 days, the couple traveled deep into the maze. Despite the fact that Treadwell had witnessed some alarming bear behavior.
Let's keep it $150. I will not have the primary takeaway from this documentary or this summarization of Werner Herzog or whatever, which is supposed to be like, oh, don't fuck with bears, like they'll kill you. The only takeaway I have from this is that his vibes were off and the bears could smell him. The bears could smell his vibes were off. Normally,
while in the maze the previous August, he still set up camp in the most isolated part of it. Treadwell wrote on August 21st, "Much danger for me. I felt a great deal of paranoia, and rightfully so." He also mentioned that a nearby creek was loaded with bears and trouble. In addition to traveling deep into the Grizzly Maze, Treadwell also made the risky decision to establish his camp along one of the major bear trails. He was intent on instigating as many bear encounters as possible, and the location would make that easy for him. According to biologist Larry Van Dale, Treadwell chose the spot he did to ensure that bears wishing to traverse the area would have had to either wade into the nearby lake or walk right next to the tent. In Van Dale's estimation, a person
Okay? Obviously, nothing bad happened to the guy. Stop.
If you're wondering how close Treadwell got with the bears, he actually named every single one he encountered during his 13 summers in Alaska. He also spent time each year inserting himself in their habitats and camping along their trails. By all accounts, he was pushing the boundaries of human-bear interaction. In his videos, Treadwell hoped to show the world that grizzlies were not as sinister as they appeared. He even touched them, even going as far as kissing one on the nose. He and Huguenard spent previous summers together in Alaska, and she joined him in his quest to be a human among bears. "You haven't lived until you've bathed in a river with bears," she told a friend. In September, before they left and returned to their camp, Treadwell recorded an interaction with 2 large male grizzlies he had named Demon and Machine. He was
The bear was getting a taste test. Like, damn, I'm gonna remember this, dog. This shit. Oh. Anyway, listen. All I'm stating is this guy, for multiple bear seasons, was able to maintain contact without issues. Why? 13 years, bro. Think about all the years where the bears didn't eat him. Think about all the years, bro. He gets eaten one time. I say that's a success. They were aging him like fine wine. Bro, 1 out of 14 of the years, like the bear attacks you one day, okay? But you're there for 14 years on bear season. I say those are some pretty good fucking odds that bears are not violent at all. Okay? It was one time. It was one time. There was probably a disagreement. The bears didn't like his vibes. And some things happen. You know, disagreements occur in the wild.
excited because he felt like he had earned Demon's trust. According to Treadwell, "I am being let in very close to Demon and his food source, and in a further sign that he trusts me, he has actually turned his back to me." However,
How about it was because his girlfriend? We haven't even talked about the real speculation. Why killed the bear? It has a taste of human flesh. It's Jover.
So what do you think? Poor guy, or did Grizzly Man have it coming? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from our weird history.
Dude, I'll never understand. I like bears, but like I'm not touching a bear in the wild. You know what I mean? Because like I never go out in the wild. I don't like that. And I will never understand the type of dude whose brain is like, I'm going to go into the wild.
You've seen the 2007 movie or even read the 1997 book, but the real story of the man behind Into the Wild is a lot more twisted and confusing than you'd probably ever think. Chris McCandless' death was far from straightforward. Rife with missteps and miscalculations, his final fate may have been completely out of his hands. Today we're exploring everything that had to go wrong for Chris McCandless to meet his fate. Before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel. Leave a comment and let us know what topics you would like to hear about next.
More bears, please.
Forget the boogeyman or Freddy Krueger. After learning about Chris McCandless, the subject of your nightmares is going to be potato seeds. In his 1996 book, Into the Wild, author Jack Krakauer asserts that McCandless perished from starvation caused by consuming, you guessed it, poisonous potato seeds. In one of McCandless's final journal entries, he wrote, "Extremely weak, fault of potato seeds." In his research, Krakauer found that based on the number of potato seeds in the proximity of the bus, McCandless had probably been eating poisonous wild potato plant seeds for weeks, not just for a day or two towards the end of his life. In Krakauer's own experience, wild potato plants were growing everywhere I looked in the surrounding taiga. I filled a 1-gallon bag with more than a...
Yeah, guess what, dog? Here's why Freddy Krueger remains on top as, you know, being in my nightmares. Because I ain't going out in the fucking wild like that. Okay? Guess what, dude? I'm never thinking about potatoes like that, ever. Okay, because all the potatoes I have, well, I'm having them in the confines of my home, right? I'm having them at McDonald's. Like, I'm not going to be having them out in the fucking wild. You know? See, this is like equivalent to people being like, bears are actually very cute. You should pet them. You know? Like, people that say camping is great, you should go to Yosemite, while we're in the middle of looking at what happens when camping goes wrong, is like, are you a campsite serial killer operating out of Yosemite? Why do you want me to go there? Awfully suspicious of you. To just say, hey man, don't you even think about it, okay? Things are so chill.
Pound of seeds in less than 30 minutes. But wild potato plant seeds were not considered to be poisonous, so the potato plant theory was dead in the water. But then, after reading a paper by Ronald Hamilton, a metaphorical light bulb appeared over Krakauer's head. The Hamilton paper recalled an experiment conducted by German forces in World War II, in which camp inmates were slowly poisoned using a ground-up legume. Their symptoms reminded him of descriptions of McCandless's final days, so, following his hunch, Krakauer sent the seed samples to a Michigan lab. The lab results confirmed Krakauer's hunch. The disease brought on by this type
of experiments
of poisoning is called neolatherism, or, if that's too much of a mouthful for you, latherism for short. Latherism involved a neurological breakdown that results in weakness, paralysis, and, ultimately, loss of life. So even though his initial report said McCandless died of starvation, the real answer was clearly a little bit more complicated than that. As an able-bodied 24-year-old dude, you would think Chris was in the best shape of his life, but that may have actually worked against him when it came to his bad luck with wild potato plant seeds. Remember that paper by Ronald Hamilton we were just talking about? Well, Hamilton based his theories on medical experiments conducted at the Vapniarka concentration camp during World War II. At Vapniarka, located in the Ukraine, prisoners were given pea fodder in their bread to assess potential side effects. Individuals at the camp started limping and, within just a few months, were so weak that they had to crawl around the camp if they wanted to get around. The more the men ate, the worse the effects were, and there was no way to reverse it. After World War II, scientists used this information to explore the toxicity of the poison, Lathyrus sativus. Dr. Arthur Kessler, a doctor who was actually a prisoner at Vapniarca, spent the rest of his life in studying and caring for victims of Lathyrus sativus. Further study determined that while all individuals exposed to the toxin were susceptible to its effects, men between the ages of 15 and 25, especially those with low-calorie diets, regimens of heavy physical activity, and nutrient deficiencies, were impacted most severely. Initially, the seeds from the site where McCandless died were tested at the University of Alaska Fairbanks and came back negative for swainsonine, an alkaloid poison. It was only after Krakauer came into the picture that more seeds were analyzed for the presence of OPAD, the toxin protein from Hamilton's paper. Dr. Craig Larner from the Michigan lab found levels of OPAD in the seeds.
What caused him to go into the wild? Was he poisoned by the potato beforehand? Because I feel like that's the weird shit. Not him dying. No, it's not a plane crash. This guy actually went out there, no? No. This is the guy who literally was like, no, I want to live out there.
Concentration significant enough to cause lathyrism. Given the large number of seeds McCandless was likely consuming, his age, and his overall malnutrition, he would have been highly susceptible to the debilitating condition. Krakauer ultimately agreed with Hamilton, who concluded, McCandless did indeed starve to death in the Alaskan wild, but this only because he'd been poisoned, and the poison had rendered him too weak to move about, to hunt or forage, and toward the end, extremely weak. Too weak to walk out, and having much trouble just to stand up. He wasn't truly starving in the most technical sense of that condition. He'd simply become slowly paralyzed. Considering his final journal entries stopped containing full words and morphed into a series of slashes, we can only guess just how weak and in pain he really was. When Chris McCandless set out for his post-college Alaskan adventure, he was determined to live off the land. In 2007, chemists posited that McCandless's seeds were contaminated with Rhizotonia lumicola, the mold that causes swainsonine. Some thought it was possible that when McCandless stored his food, it got moldy. There's no way to be certain how Chris stored his seeds, berries, and the meat of small animals, but we can probably guess that they weren't stored in Ziploc freezer bags. However, in an experiment to test this mold theory, scientists Edward Treadwell and Thomas Clausen attempted to grow mold on 2 types of legume seeds found near Bus 142, aka the site of Chris's death. Interestingly, no trace of swainsonine was found. McCandless's final resting place was in his homemade base at an abandoned bus along the Stampede Trail. Hikers and hunters who traversed the area used the bus as a place of refuge, and so did Chris. 2 weeks after his death, his remains were discovered inside the rusty shelter in September of 1992. A note on the door read, "Attention all possible visitors. SOS. I need your help. I am injured, near death, and too weak to hike out of here. I am all alone. This is no joke. In the name of God, please remain to save me. I am out collecting berries close by and shall return this evening. Thank you, Chris McCandless." August.
What happened? I guess someone said he wanted to die out there, but turns out he didn't.
Other than the no-joke note, Chris never did anything to draw attention to his position. In a twist of bad luck, the bus wasn't near any flight paths, so we couldn't have signaled for aid that way. However, some theorize he could have lit a fire large enough to be seen in the nearby town of Healy or at other hunting camps in the area. According to his sister Corrine McCandless, Chris would never ever intentionally burn down a forest, not even to save his life. Anyone who would suggest otherwise doesn't understand the first thing.
He was brave and he's a hero to many autistic people, so you better stop the slander. We've seen 2 different people that got the worst kinds of autism. One, bear autism. The other one, nature autism. Both of which ended up killing them. Turns out, like, the best kind of autism is just map autism, okay? All of the other types of autism, or train autism, the other types of autism ends up killing you, okay? That is not for you to decide. No, just like indoor autisms are far more preferable to like any kind of autism experienced outdoors, with the exception of train autism or plane autism. See, Murad immediately went, dude, planes are the best when he heard that.
about my brother. Regardless of whether Chris could have avoided his untimely fate or not, it's clear that his journey made a lasting imprint on the world as we know it, since it was popularized by John Krakauer's article and later his 1996 nonfiction book Into the Wild. It's gone on to be a 2008 movie directed by Sean Penn, starring Emile Hirsch, and even scored by Pearl Jam's Eddie Vedder. Additionally, in 2011, Twin Star Press published Back to the Wild, a book of photographs, journal entries, and postcards from McCandless during his journey from the western U.S. to Alaska. In 2015, McCandless' sister Corrine wrote a celebrated memoir, The Wild Truth, about her struggles with her brother's legacy. Later that same year, PBS released a 60-minute documentary on McCandless called Return to the Wild. To say Chris's story is an inspiration is an understatement. His spirit, attitude, and determination, especially during the end of his life, continue.
Okay, am I crazy? Is this because there was a lot of media surrounding this guy? Because what is inspiring, dude? Inspired to do what? Die outdoors? What the fuck? No, I thought they made kids read this because it was like, it was to show children like to not go outside. You know what I mean? Like, oh, as a warning. Because everyone's like, oh, dude, like, you know, they taught us this, like, we had to read it at school. And I thought it was because, like, oh, you live in, like, Alaska or something. And they're just trying to teach you a valuable lesson that at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. And, like, you have to defend yourself against that. And the easiest way to do that is by subscribing for $5 or for free. You know? That's right. You can also get gifted a sub if you're lucky. Here's a 3-minute ad break now.
Continues to inspire people long after he's been gone. Regardless of how many factors it took for Chris McCandless to meet his maker, it's clear the world lost a bright star on that 1992 day. What do you think about Chris McCandless' story? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other videos.
The Revenant.
I don't get it. Like, I don't understand it at all. I do think that it comes from a place of privilege. To constantly want to seek out death like this, like to go out of your way to seek out death like this must be a byproduct of a profound amount of privilege. But then again, I grew up in a pretty fucking affluent family, you know? Like, I was very privileged. So why the fuck don't I have that? I don't understand it. I've never fucked with any of this shit. I've never been like, yeah, I can't wait to put myself in a horrible situation. I don't get it. You've been talking about your need to vibe with bears for like the last hour. You're just lazy. No. No. People don't understand something. When I say I think I would vibe with bears, like the only time I'm going to encounter a bear is going to be in a inside style environment. Because I'm not going to be outside. I'm not going to go to the bear's home. But if the bear comes to my home, then, you know, that's chill. Because the bear is going to respect me. Because he's come to my home. And he's going to see the vibes, and he's going to go, let's be fucking friends. You know what I mean? Like, let's be tight. Whereas, well, I do live in West Hollywood, and I'm not talking about those kinds of bears. But, like, if I go to the bear's home, it's different. Then, you know, then the bear could be like, I'm having a bad day.
Is based on a true story of a man named Hugh Glass, portrayed by Leonardo.
Hugh Glass. The failed, this could have been really funny if it was Hugh Janus.
Leonardo DiCaprio in the movie. But the true story of Hugh Glass is even more insane and badass than what's shown in The Revenant. Hugh Glass was born somewhere near Scranton, Pennsylvania in 1783 to Scotch-Irish immigrant parents. In his early years, Hugh was a man of the sea, until of course his ship was boarded by the infamous French pirate Jean Lafitte. Hugh was given a choice to die or become a pirate. Glass chose to become a pirate over being killed, and he lived the next few years of his life being forced to go out on murderous pirating raids and do all the things that pirates do. Finally, after about 2 years of that, Hugh escaped his pirate captors, jumping off a ship and swimming ashore in Texas. Of course, when Hugh swam ashore, he wasn't exactly safe. The Karankawa Indians patrolled those shores, and they didn't take too kindly to pirates. At the time, it was rumored the Karankawa were cannibals, and they loved nothing more than to capture, kill, and eat a European pirate. So, Glass had to make his way through their territory without a map or anything, which he did, making his way to Kansas. Glass was traveling with one other man who escaped the pirate fleet. Though they thought they were out of the woods once they got to Kansas, they weren't. They were both promptly captured by a band of Pawnee Indians. The Pawnee then hung Glass's traveling companion upside down and rammed pine needles into his skin all over his body, and then lit him on fire. Glass was forced to watch, and he was next in line. However, just as the Pawnee were about to stick his body full of pine needles and light him on fire, Hugh Glass offered the Pawnee a large packet of vermilion, a bright red powdered dye that could be used for war paint and other purposes. It worked. The Pawnee loved it and ended up inviting Glass to live with them, and he did. He lived with the Pawnee for about 2 years.
I feel like the story, if you look at it from this framework, story seems kind of wild. Like, these guys are perfectly, I mean, they're very violent if they think you're like a murderous white guy. But then they're super chill if you're like, hey, I'm actually not a murderous white guy. Here's some gifts. Kind of doesn't make sense. They just didn't know he was chill like that. I mean, dude, same principle behind the Bears.
Even taking a wife, before continuing on his life's journey, making his way to St. Louis. That's where Hugh Glass first got into the fur trade and became a mountain man. Basically, his job was living in the mountains, living off the land, trapping beavers, and selling and trading their pelts with fur companies and Indian tribes. Hugh responded to an advertisement in the Missouri Gazette by General William Henry Ashley of the Rocky Mountain Fur Company, which called for a corps of 100 men to, quote, ascend the River Missouri as part of a fur trading venture. During their journey, the corps of 100 stopped to trade with a band of Ree Indians, but the Ree didn't want to trade, and they killed a huge portion of the mountain men. Not to be outdone, the remaining mountain men set the Ree's village on fire. Many men, women, and children died in what ended up being an all-out war, which Hugh found himself right in the middle of. When all was said and done, Hugh survived, and he and 13 other mountain men started making their way towards Yellowstone to trap beavers. One fateful day on their journey, Hugh walked into a suspicious...
I like the idea of just like surviving many different onslaughts, many different slaughters, to just go back and be like, all right, time to trap beavers. Time to trap beavers, I guess. He's like, yeah, just survived the gruesome murders of all of my friends that I've been working with for the past 5 years. You know, just another Thursday.
Cleared area, which ended up being a bear's nest. What happened to Hugh in that bear's nest is basically exactly what happened in The Revenant. He was mauled within an inch of his life. The bear ripped chunks off of his body and threw it to her cubs to eat. Then the cubs joined in, slashing him and tearing at him while their mother held him down. By the time the rest of Hugh's men got to him and were able to kill the bears, he was a mangled mess. He can't see, he can't speak, he can't move. The men did the best they could to bandage him, but the assumption was Hugh would be dead by the morning at best. However, Hugh survived the night. Needing to make headway, General Henry decided to have the men make a makeshift stretcher and carry Hugh the rest of the way. But after some time, trying to carry the 98% dead Hugh on a stretcher...
It's kind of fucked up that, like, they just keep taking L's the bears and then murdering the bears as a consequence of the L's that we took. It ain't the bear's fault, dog. You're tasty. He's 1 HP.
Over rough terrain through the mountains was starting to not make sense. Still believing Hugh was on death's door, the general decided to leave Hugh behind, leaving 2 men with him to wait for him to die. Those 2 men were Fitzgerald, an older man about the same age as Hugh, and Bridger, who was just a teenager. After 5 days, Hugh was still alive. Now, they weren't alone in the mountains. The mountain men were being pursued this whole time by the Ree Indians, because they burned down their village. Sensing the Ree were close, Fitzgerald made the call to take all of Hugh's provisions, his rifle, his shot, etc., and just leave Hugh to die. Since he was so close to death anyway, Fitzgerald and Bridger dragged Hugh's mangled, unconscious body down to the edge of a creek and left. But Hugh didn't die.
One HP, and he's causing you to potentially die. I feel like he's out of his fucking mind. Like, what do you mean, dog? Like, what are you gonna do? Vengeance on me now? Like, I'm glad you survived, but that's pretty insane. You know what I mean? In the movie, they kill his son because I assume they wanted to make it more like they wanted to give like legal, not legal, but like moral permission, because the OG, I assume the original story makes it seem ridiculous that he went and killed them. So they wanted to make it make sense. They left him to die or stole his stuff. To be fair, they could have put him out of his misery, and they really thought he wasn't. If they really thought he wasn't gonna make it.
Hugh had crawled, stumbled, and walked his way 250 miles. This boat upriver would take him another 300 miles in his quest for vengeance. And it did. But when Hugh, along with the French fur traders, made it to their destination, a Mandan Indian village where they would trade beaver pelts, they found the village had been overtaken by the Ree, who then murdered Glass's entire company. Again,
Oh my God.
Hugh was alone.
Here we go, bro. These guys were so effective, it seems. Like, they were just constantly ripping everywhere they went, dude.
In the woods, being hunted by Indians again. Just as the Ree were about to capture Hugh, a heroic group of Mandan Indians swooped in. They
Stop again? Come on, bro. Let him die, dog. What the hell is going on?
rescued Hugh from certain death and delivered him to safety at the Fort Tilton trading post. At Fort Tilton, Hugh could stay and rest and take a breather. But he didn't. He didn't want to rest. All he wanted to do was hunt down Fitzgerald. 6 months after he was attacked by a bear and left for dead. 6 months of crawling through the mountains in frigid temperatures, eating raw.
Why are you hating on him, though? I'm not getting it. Dude, sometimes you just got to let it happen, dude. Listen, this many attempts, like this many instances where like nature almost murks you, you got to be like, all right, it's done. I can't. Like, I'm not meant to survive at this point. It's like Final Destination shit, dude. Jesus Christ.
Buffalo with maggots all over his back. 6 months of nothing but focus on getting his revenge. Hugh found his old company in a stockade, which
say he was involved with the burning of a native village, but it seems like he was also kind of chill with the natives as well. Like, weirdly enough. So, time frame adjusted, he was probably the most woke guy. He was doing DEI for the time. You know what I mean? Like, it was more of a he lived with the tribe. He lived with a tribe. So he was more so like, this is some DEI shit. Like, I'm telling you, this is like, he is the most woke of his era. Like, think about it this way. He's chilling and living. He's chilling and living with the natives. His kid is part native. No, I don't think he had a kid, man. Like, it's kind of like, you're just participating in the action at that point. Like, you're getting involved in activities that they're doing. Like, if one tribe is blowing up the village of another tribe because the vibes are fucked, like, what are you not going to participate? Just saying. The natives would not, like, I guess the standard is this. Would the natives let him wear a headdress? Or would they cancel him? And I feel like the answer is they would have let him wear the headdress. Not the chief headdress, obviously. Like, that's unacceptable. Y'all are so white.
which was the new Fort Henry along the Bighorn River. But only Bridger was still at the fort. After talking to him, and since Bridger was just a teenager, Hugh came to realize that Bridger was
He had a native wife, not sure if it was consensual. Wait, what? Yo, not every circumstance is like a fucking, what are you talking about? It seems like he lived with the natives, chatter. Like, it's at that point, it's like, I'm sure there was a tremendous amount of misogyny. Not entirely certain on like whether native societies were like matriarchal or patriarchal, but it's like, it's not the same as like a slave owner having sex with his slaves or something, or raping his slaves. I said, someone said passport, bro. That's from the movie. Did the narrator say this and I missed it? No, I think he did live amongst the natives for like years, actually, not even for a little bit. Even before the second time he went amongst the natives and they fixed his ass up with bear skin.
Basically an innocent bystander in all of this, and Fitzgerald was the sole person responsible for the last 6 months of hell.
There's no historical evidence Glass had a native wife or son. That was invented solely for the movie. Not the son, but I thought someone in the chat said he had a native wife.
Severe winter weather kept Glass at Fort Henry for a few months, but as soon as he could, he jumped on a boat and headed downriver on an official mission for the fur company to get to Fort Atkinson, which is where Fitzgerald was said to be. On their journey, the group came upon what they thought were Pawnee Indians along the river, but they ended up being Ree-Indians, and Hugh found himself in yet another battle for survival. In the chaos of the fight, some of Hugh's companions escaped on boat and made their way to Fort Atkinson, but Hugh, of course, wasn't so lucky. He was left alone in the wilderness, again, with the Ree on his tail. After walking another 400 miles through the unforgiving wilderness with nothing but a pocket knife, Hugh made it to Fort Atkinson, and he found Fitzgerald. But there was a problem. Fitzgerald had joined the US Army and was now government property. Hugh Glass wouldn't be allowed to kill a soldier, so he never got his revenge at the end. Seriously, that's it. After all of that, that was the end of the line. No dramatic stare down, no knockdown drag-out fight. Hugh Glass came back from the dead and crawled through a year's worth of hell you can't even begin to imagine, just to be told by an army captain, yeah, nah. And that's the real story of Hugh Glass, which is somehow even more insane and badass than how it's shown in The Revenant.
Thanks for watching this video. Be sure
There's more. It's not this abrupt. Oh, no evidence of a native wife or son. Glass not kill or fight Fitzgerald. Very little is known about John Fitzgerald. However, he was a real person. Dude, I feel like that time is so shitty. It's so shit. The video says he took a native wife. I guess it's speculation. God damn, dude. It's just like so nasty. It's real like dying of dysentery hours. I don't know. There's like points. There's points in history where you're like, oh, it would be kind of cool to live back then, right? Regardless of not having, the internet or unlimited access to pornography or hamburgers, okay? Like Roman Empire era, like at its peak, is kind of chill. Not if you're black. No. I'm talking like, there's literally the same principle applies to like African empires as well. So like Egypt or some shit at its peak. Like there are definitely areas where it's like kind of chill, right? And for the record, Roman Empire too. But then you think about like, I know people are going to get mad at me, but like the Dark Ages and be like, that's not real. That's not a real concept. Or you think about like this exact period in time in America, and I got no love for that. I feel like it was just gray. Like it was just so awful. There is literally nothing that I can think of in this circumstance where I'm just like, man, that's so sick. It's just like everyone is a barbaric animal constantly looking to fuck one another, fuck each other over. It's just like so painful, the existence. No real working sewage structure and none of that. It's just nasty. All the pussies died? Yeah, totally. Bro, it's been horrible until like 50 years ago. I mean, some might say still the horrible. I'm just saying, like, specifically, this is the worst time, I think. Like, one of the worst. Yeah, the Roman Empire had black emperors as well. They were woke and gay. They were so woke and so gay. Yeah, ancient Indian cities had sewer networks that weren't replicated in Europe until the 1800s. If I'm a time traveler and get a toothache, I'm begging for a mercy kill. Roman Empire was woke like Lockheed Martin is woke, though. That's actually a really funny way to approach it. I mean, it's worse than Lockheed Martin in many respects. Duh. Yeah. I'm afraid I'm gonna say the classic take of, I mean, come on. It was a really long time ago, dude. We're talking people were using communal sticks to wipe their asses, okay? It's like, I feel like it's a little bit different when you talk about the Roman Empire versus like when you talk about America in 1809. You know what I mean? Like, that's a whole ass like Roman Empire's worth of time before the Roman Empire almost. I mean, I fucked up the math on that, but you get what I'm saying.